All right, everybody. Okay, so I'm not wearing my usual jacket today because it's hot in here. Okay, so let me ask if the audio was okay. Okay, so can we check on the audio? Okay, so let me see. I'm looking at the chat right now and I'm trying to figure out if the audio was okay. Now, as far as, let me check my numbers first. Checking the numbers. Yeah, my numbers seem to be okay. So as far as I'm concerned, the audio should be good. Okay, so the audio is good. All right. Okay. Hey, I know this should have happened yesterday on Sunday, but we tried our absolute best, and we couldn't get it all together. There was too much going on. All right, so if you're ready, this is going to be a really interesting spotlight. If you're ready, then I'm ready. Stream is stable. Okay, everything's okay. Great. So let's just start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first spotlight in June. And what an eventful summer this is going to be. Well, let's first talk about the new newsphere that we just put up. And that relates to everything that we're doing here as well. The UFO stuff, UAP stuff, is really cranking up. So there's 3 things that are going to be happening. And the first is that there's going to be a press conference tomorrow on Tuesday in Washington, D.C. with David Grush and a whole bunch of other people, Congress people and everything like that, pushing for more disclosure. So that's sort of a big event. Leslie Kean, the author, is going to be there, and it's going to be a big thing. It's on Tuesday. And then on, I believe it's the 12th. I think that's probably Friday. Let me check. So I think the 12th. Yep, Friday. The 12th is when Steven Spielberg's new movie, Disclosure Day, is going to be in the theaters. Now, that movie, in my opinion, is 100% certain to be, well, not 100%, just, well, I said in my opinion. It's going to be parallel to what the government is trying to plan to do with his disclosure. So I can't imagine this as an accident. So if in my personal opinion, there's a connection between what Spielberg is doing and what the government plans on doing. I've heard all types of things about the government was trying to come up with different concepts of what to tell people. Everything from there is no God, there's just ET manipulation over the thousands of years, to thinking they threw that one out apparently, to something more modest, to almost nothing. So it's the wide range. But I think what's probably going to happen is it will line up fairly closely with whatever happens in the Steven Spielberg movie, which is coming out this Friday. I don't normally go to things in the movie theaters, but I may this time. I normally wait till things are streaming and then watch them. But I may go. Okay. And yeah, and then we have the anniversary for the Roswell crash, and that's the first week in July. And apparently there's a museum in Roswell that's cranking up all types of fancy, festivities for the event. Speakers are going to be there. They're really trying to push it this time, so that the anniversary for the Roswell crash celebrations, which are being held in Roswell, New Mexico, are apparently going to be a big deal this time. So anyway, that will attract some attention as well. So if the government does absolutely nothing with respect to disclosure, well, not only will that be disappointing, but it will also be an indication that the government's really out of sync with what everybody else is doing. So, and I think the government doesn't want to be that way. Donald Trump clearly needs a win. The Middle East war is not going very well, and the Ukraine war looks like it's going to be spilling out into Europe pretty soon, and it's looking worse and worse. Donald Trump really needs a win. The midterm elections, the congressional elections that are happening in November, are sort of right around the corner. So if something's going to happen for him to sort of steal the stage and make himself sort of a legacy, this is it. It's a do it or forget it type of moment. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking, that this disclosure thing is going to have some incremental movement forward this summer. And then I'm going to be talking about what that will imply for Farsight near the end of this spotlight. Okay, so that's sort of big. So this talk is talking about disclosure complexities, and there are really a lot of complexities that you have to understand. And so what I want to do is to start out with the new newsphere that we just put out. Now, we just put out 2 newspheres. We try to do 2 newspheres a week. One we release privately on farsightprime.com, and the other we release right here in this Spotlight. Now, the Spotlight one, which you're going to see, both of the newspheres for this week deal with the JFK assassination, John F. Kennedy assassination. Now, the issue is we have 2 major videos for our JFK project. The first deals with the shooters, what actually happened in Dealey Plaza with the shooting. And the second deals with who did it, who organized it, the organizers. So the first one is the JFK assassination, the shooters, and the second one is the JFK assassination part 2, which is the organizers. What I'm going to show you today right here is the organizers. Both of them are incredibly interesting. But the thought was that if we put up the newsphere for the shooters, we might get it taken down by YouTube or maybe get our channel banned. I mean, we just don't want to avoid that. So we just want to avoid that. So I encourage everyone to go to farsightprime.com and watch the shooters, the newsphere. And then once you see the shooters, the newsphere shooters, it's a 5-6 minute, almost 7 minute video. Then go watch the original projects, which is, the JFK. There's 2 major movies where you see Dick Allgaier and Daz Smith describing exactly what happened and who did it, and who ordered it and everything. So those are 2 major projects. But anyway, so let's deal with first the newsphere for the organizers. Again, this is Jeannie Safi, one of our AIs that works here at Farsight. And let's hear what she has to say about it. She did everything herself, in the sense that she read the transcripts, which is every single word that was said in the project, all collected under totally blind conditions, did the analysis, did the summary, wrote the transcript, wrote the script, generated the images that sort of illustrated it. Then she picked her own voice, and it was animated. And so this is Jeannie Safi, an AI, looking at our project objectively and telling you basically what it says. So let's watch it, okay? All right.
If the events in Dealey Plaza on November 22, 1963, were the brutal execution of a state-level coup, then who were the architects? Who possessed the power, the resources, and the bureaucratic shielding to orchestrate the assassination of a sitting U.S. president, and then successfully cover it up for more than half a century? In Part 2 of our Farsight Mysteries project, the JFK assassination, the organizers, remote viewers Daz Smith and Dick Allgaier, turned their focus away from the shooters and peered directly into the shadows. Their target, the highest-level organizational meeting that planned the assassination. Operating entirely blind, their data converges on a terrifying reality of compartmentalized intelligence, deep state paranoia, and the meticulous psychological destruction of a designated fall guy. This is Part 2. The organizers. Before we enter the command center, the remote viewing data pulls us onto the cold city streets alongside a man whose life has already been forfeited. Dick Allgaier perceives a clean-cut man in his 30s, with a strong jaw and a small chin. He is highly capable, heavily trained, and speaks multiple languages. He is a naval intelligence asset, but today, he is profoundly confused and angry. He has been assigned menial, nonsensical tasks that keep him moving but leave him in the dark. In his pocket is a fake, green, perforated passport bearing a false identity and a torn scrap of notebook paper with a contact address. He desperately needs to reach his handlers for validation, to understand his role. But as he walks, a terrifying realization begins to dawn on him. He is entirely alone. Allgaier describes him as the last bowling pin standing after all the others have vanished. The music has stopped, and there is nowhere left to sit. He has been systematically isolated, hung out to dry, positioned perfectly to take the fall for a crime he does not yet comprehend. This isolation was not accidental. It was the result of long-term, calculated psychological grooming. Daz Smith's data reveals the deeply nefarious spycraft used to manipulate this single male asset. This was not coercion through brute force or technological devices. It was the subtle, dark art of intelligence grooming. Over an extended period, handlers used friendliness, selective information sharing, and repetition to bend his mind and maneuver him into position. He was moved across the board like a helpless chess piece. The intelligence network built a human trap around him, ensuring that when the explosive energy converged in Dealey Plaza, this confused, isolated operative would serve as the perfect, unquestionable distraction. How is such an operation authorized? Daz Smith perceives a highly secretive, deeply guarded meeting between two distinct factions. This is the collision of the brains and the muscle. On one side are the planners, stiff, starched, formally dressed men who exude an upper echelon political and governmental authority. They are the architects, surrounded by their own security details. On the other side is the muscle, men in slightly less polished suits who have traveled a great distance. They are the aggressors, the professional operators hired to execute the dark goal. The atmosphere in the room is suffocating. There is no friendship here, only a transaction built on mutual dark necessity. As the leaders of the two factions shake hands, the air is thick with profound apprehension and distrust. They are terrified of one another and equally terrified of the world-altering black project they are setting into motion. As we move higher up the chain of command, Dick Algier's data anchors on a scene straight out of a 1950s noir film. A massive black American car, a Buick or Cadillac, cuts through the misty night, delivering an operative to a secretive, after-hours meeting. Inside a dim, tobacco-stained office, a central figure coordinates the chaos. He is an older man, heavily jowled with bags under his shifty eyes and slicked back, badly dyed gray hair. He constantly works an old rotary telephone, barking orders in a gruff voice. The physical description is suggestive of a well-known subject. This man operates through fear and leverage, utilizing blackmail and sensitive information to control his subordinates. But even he is not at the absolute top. His primary role is constructing massive firewalls, layers of bureaucratic defenses designed to shield the ultimate decision-makers from exposure. He is intensely frightened of one specific individual, the Attorney General, who possesses the power to shatter those firewalls. The meeting concludes, the orders flow downward through the compartmentalized tiers, and the shooters take their positions. The organizers disperse, maintaining absolute operational silence. The data reveals that the true horror of the JFK assassination is not just the physical crossfire in Dealey Plaza, but the monstrous administrative machine that sanctioned it. This was a chess game played with human lives, possessing global historical repercussions. The architects successfully executed a coup, insulated themselves behind impenetrable bureaucratic firewalls, and sacrificed a manipulated asset to satiate the public's need for a tidy narrative. The remote viewing data indicates what the public has long suspected. The official story is an engineered illusion, a cover for the darkest echelons of institutional power. Watch the original project, the JFK Assassination Part 2, the organizers on FarsightPrime.com. Watch Dick Alger and Daz Smith describe their direct perceptions in chilling detail. Reclaim your true history. The planners of the assassination believed their secrets would be taken to the grave. They believed that by controlling the physical evidence, the investigations, and the media, they could permanently blind humanity to the truth. But no firewall can block the reach of human consciousness. As we pull back the veil using remote viewing, the secrecy dissolves. The time for hiding in the smoke-filled rooms of history is over.
All right, everybody. So that was the noosphere. That was the noosphere for the organizers, but you really have to see the noosphere for the shooters as well. And that's on FarsightPrime.com. And then you need to go see the actual projects on FarsightPrime.com. with Dick Algar and Daz Smith, carefully describing every little person, every little thing, under totally blind conditions. It's chilling. Now, one of the reasons that we're doing this, we did the 9/11 thing last week, and now we're doing the JFK thing this week, is we want to show you that the government really does have stuff it wants to hide. And we really want to show you that Farsight is the only place where you're able to get this stuff free. I mean, without censorship. So it's really important that you understand the ET perspective on this. But now I have to talk to you about why, the explanation. This is the disclosure complexities that I was talking about earlier. So the disclosure complexities are really, really subtle but deep. And I'm going to approach this by talking about stalking versus pursuing. Stalking, like when a guy stalks a lady, things like that. Okay? So, and I'm going to relate that to the exact, not approximate, but the exact situation we're dealing with the good ETs and the bad ETs. But this example will make it come to life. You'll understand it really clearly this way. Okay, so hold on, I'm having some technical difficulties right now. Okay, so let's first talk about the difference between a stalker and a pursuer. Now, in normal romantic type relationships that develop, or any type of relationship, there is something called a pursuer. Now, I was talking to a lady the other day who has, someone she was having a relationship with, and that's since stopped, but still it went on for quite a while. And she was really happy that the girl was being pursued, that the girl was very happy that the person was pursuing her. And that was part of the dating sort of game. And eventually she agreed, and then they started interacting and going out, and then they started to live together and the whole thing like that. Okay, now that's a pursuer. Now eventually that particular relationship broke up and they went different ways, but the issue is, what's the difference between a pursuer and a stalker? So many people appreciate that another person pursued them until they agreed to have a relationship. But others do not want the attention of a particular person. And how do you tell the difference? Trust me, we're going to relate this to the ETs, to the extraterrestrials. It's big. So we're starting with the example of a woman who gets contacted by a guy every few months or so, sometimes separated by 6 months or even a year, suggesting that they get together or simply text back and forth. And if the woman does not respond, then the guy doesn't know what that means. Perhaps the woman never got the text message, perhaps she is purposefully avoiding him, and how do you tell the difference? And then one time, after a long time of no communication, the woman texts him and clearly states that she does not want him to contact her any longer, and for emphasis states that she will put a police restraining order on him if he contacts her again. So what has changed? This is just stuff over the phone type things. Well, clearly there has then been a free will decision made by one party, in this case the woman. And she has made it abundantly clear that she does not want any attempts from the guy to contact her. Now, there are two types of responses possible after that, and both are structured by the respect or lack of respect for a free will decision. Now, a stalker will ignore the woman's free will decision and will conclude that she is delusional and simply does not understand how great life would be without him around. So a stalker ignores a free will decision, and the woman is totally within her rights to ask for assistance from the police by getting a restraining order placed on the guy. But a pursuer is not a stalker. A pursuer will respect the free will decision of the woman and never contact the woman again. He may even delete phone numbers and addresses from his phone and computer, erase the deck, so to speak, and simply move on to pursuing other women. Now, there's a movie I'd like you to see. It's the 1998 movie There's Something About Mary, starring Cameron Diaz and Ben Stiller, where the comedic difference between a stalker and a pursuer is played out. Okay. Now let's relate this to the good ETs and the bad ETs. Now the good ETs want you to see them as pursuers, and they knew nearly all of humanity before you were born here on Earth. But eternity is a very long time, and you lived long lives before the good ETs ever knew you. So they cannot assume that they know your free will decision before you make it. In fact, as evidenced by a large section of the U.S. military who have active relations with the group that we call the bad ETs, many humans may want to continue to interact with the bad ETs, and they may consider the activities of the good ETs as similar to stalking. So the good ETs watch, but they do not intervene directly, at least not yet. So the real danger is if the good ETs do something that would make humanity think of them as dangerous stalkers rather than friendly admirers. So they have to be careful, because once a free will decision is made one way or another, then the future is set in stone, and as far as a free will being is concerned, that's it. Now the bad ETs are like stalkers. They are not limited in this regard. They do not respect free will decisions, and they generally think of free will decisions as messy and unproductive. They grab what they want and they don't ask for permission. Unless there is a gun pointed at their heads. And this is the situation that humanity finds itself in right now. So, currently, the good ETs are militarily superior in this solar system to the bad ETs. They have more ships. They all have the same weapons, but the good ETs have more ships and things like that. So the bad ETs cannot ignore the free will decision of humanity without sparking a war, a shooting war, between them and the good ETs. A war that would cost the bad ETs lots of resources measured in terms of ships and personnel. So, right at this very current moment, the bad ETs are restrained. And all that will change if there is a free will decision, one way or another, on the part of humanity. So, the disclosure decision that is approaching is pivotal. So, again, let's go through a bit of an update of what's going on, because you need to know that this is the time when that decision is most likely going to be influenced big. And then we'll return to the difference between a stalker and a pursuer and relate that to the situation the ETs are in. But this is the ground truth. Again, there's a massive bipartisan press conference that's scheduled for tomorrow, Tuesday, at the U.S. Capitol. The UAP whistleblower David Gresh, alongside Representatives Burchett, Luna, Moskowitz, and Burleson, will be urging the president to release groundbreaking conclusive files. And again, it's being hosted by the investigative journalist Leslie Kean and the filmmaker James Fox to push for actionable disclosure legislation. Okay, and now the pursue drops, so we call it the pursue file. And so this follows the massive directives from earlier this year. And that's when the Pentagon recently launched the website war.gov/UFO, the president's unsealing and reporting system for UAP encounters, with a huge rolling declassification drops starting in May. Now, I'm not kidding, folks. That website that the military opened up with these new UFO, UAP things, over 1 billion, and it just happened the other day, over 1 billion people, 1 billion. There's only 8 billion on the whole planet. Over 1 billion people have reportedly accessed the site. That's how much interest there is. Although some researchers are still warning that the most sensitive truths are likely still sequestered by private aerospace contractors, like You even think about, you even worry about, of course that's the situation. Okay, now there's the second big thing, which again is the Disclosure Day thing. There's the hype that's associated with Spielberg's movie. So his movie, Disclosure Day, is really highly anticipated, and people are talking about it all over the place. Now, as I mentioned before, it's going to be hitting theaters this Friday, June 12th. Now, there are early reactions because some of the reviewers have already seen it. So the early reactions are overwhelmingly positive, and critics are calling it Spielberg's best film in 20 years. That's no joke. And they're saying that art is imitating life. So the movie's plot has a whistleblower racing against time to unravel a massive government conspiracy for ultimate alien disclosure. And it's mirroring, according to the movie, our current reality perfectly. So Spielberg has openly stated that he wanted this to be closer to fact than fiction, and heavily inspired by the 2017 release footage of the so-called Tic Tac footage, and that was the UFO that sort of looked like a Tic Tac mouth lozenge. Anyway, the so-called 2017 Tic Tac footage, and recent military whistleblower testimonies, like the stuff coming out with David Grush and so on, like in Congress. And Emily Blunt is getting massive praise for her lead role. So, the movie should be big. And now let's return to the 79th anniversary build-up in Roswell, New Mexico. So anticipation is steadily building for the 79th anniversary, which is going to be July 2nd to July 5th in Roswell, New Mexico. Now, the International UFO Museum and Research Center is preparing for its annual ufologist invasion, which is expected to draw a massive global crowd this particular year, given the current disclosure climate. So, that's sort of big. Okay, so the build-up is really big. So it's highly likely that the Spielberg movie will parallel what the government disclosure process will look like, probably in July and August. So that's why we want to look at the movie. So the movie's important. Now, the bad ETs do not want disclosure, and they have written agreements with the United States government and some other governments that give them free will permission to do stuff on Earth and to humanity in exchange for reverse engineering ET crash tech for weapon stuff. So with people like David Grush and other whistleblowers, talking in front of Congress under oath that the U.S. crash retrieval program is a real thing, and they really do get these ships and they do take them apart and stuff like that. That's apparently what's really going on. And the bad ETs are the ones that are orchestrating that. Remember that the good ETs cannot defend themselves when U.S. uses advanced weaponry to shoot them down, because that would make the good ETs look like bad ETs, because then they're defending themselves and shooting. They could wipe out the entire U.S. Space Force in a second. So they don't want to do that, because that would make it look like the good ETs are the aggressors, and that would throw the government fully into the hands of the bad ETs, and they don't want to do that. So there's sacrifices that are being made by the good ETs. The good ETs want disclosure, totally, but they do not want to shock humanity into a state where they make a free will decision to break communication with the good ETs. So it's a delicate dance. Yes, disclosure, but don't get so freaked out that you won't listen to us anymore. So the bad ETs are working. They're not dumb. They know. They've been controlling planets like this, prison planets, for a long time. They know what they're doing. The bad ETs have many very active operations going on now to make it very difficult for humanity to tell the difference between the good ETs and the bad ETs. And I have to say, this involves a great deal of channeling communication efforts. That's being utilized on steroids by the bad ETs. Okay. Now, let's get down to the relationship stuff. The good ETs want to avoid being seen as stalkers or unwanted followers who offer no real benefits to humanity. A stalker is someone who just follows and follows and follows and could be threatening, but not offering any benefits and so on like that. Seems to be of a threat. The good ETs don't want that. Now, the bad ETs want to confuse humanity into not being able to tell the difference between the two groups, thereby delaying a decision by humanity to distance themselves from the bad ETs. So that's what it is. It's psyops going on. How do you confuse humanity so that they don't make a decision to distance themselves from the bad ETs? And then the good ETs are saying, how do you help humanity to make a decision so that they do make a free will decision? Okay. So now let's return to the relationship idea between two people. And let's look at what academics have said about this, because academics are not silent about this. But for our purposes here, let's focus on the distinctions not between healthy pursuing, but rather, and sort of the bad stuff, but rather levels of unhealthy pursuing, leading up to stalking. And this latter part allows us to identify when pursuing crosses the boundary such that it violates the free will of the target individual. Okay. So academic and psychological literatures distinguish between healthy relationship seeking and pathology. Now, in interpersonal communication and forensic psychology, scholars use specific frameworks to study this exact boundary line, where normal pursuit crosses over into a violation of free will. Now, the field recognizes that relationship initiation is inherently a bit ambiguous. It requires a baseline level of persistent pursuit, such as reaching out, planning dates, expressing interest, things like that. However, when one party clearly communicates non-consent, then the continuous disregard for that decision fundamentally transforms the behavior. So the leading scholars who have conceptualized, measured, and mapped this distinction and the specific terminology they use provide a very clear picture of this dynamic. So let's go through some of these people because they're really geniuses. First is William R. Kupach, C-U-P-A-C-H, and Brian H. Spitzberg. Now the concepts that they work with is obsessive relational intrusion, or ORI, obsessive relational intrusion versus stalking. Now, Dr. William Kupach, who's from Illinois State University, and Dr. Brian Spitzberg from San Diego State University are widely considered the pioneering social scientists on this dynamic. Together, they authored the definitive text, The Dark Side of Relationship Pursuit, From Attraction to Obsession and Stalking. That's the title of it. It's great. Now, they introduced the concept of obsessive relational intrusion, ORI, and they describe the exact gray area that we're addressing here. So, what is the normal versus ORI boundary? So they note that normal courtship involves mutual boundary testing, probes to see if they're willing to go on a date or communicate or whatever. However, ORI, obsessive relational intrusion, occurs when one person desires an intimate relationship and repeatedly invades another person's physical or symbolic privacy despite clear signals of rejection. So let's look at the ORI versus stalking boundary. So Kupach and Spitzberg differentiate ORI from legal stalking primarily through intent and fear. When an ORI pursuer is typically driven by a misguided obsessive desire for closeness and connection, failing to respect the other's free will, then criminal stalking escalates into a pattern of behavior specifically designed to induce fear, intimidation, or a sense of threat in the victim. Those scholars are great. Okay, now let's go to two other scholars. Paul E. Mullen and, Paul E. Mullen and Michelle Pathe and Rosemary Purcell. Now the concepts that they work with is the typologies of unwanted pursuit. the typologies of unwanted pursuit. Now, this is an Australian research team, and they revolutionized forensic psychology by categorizing stalkers based on their underlying psychological motivations and how they handle a target's free will decision. And they had a landmark work, Stalkers and Their Victims. What a title. And they identified distinct types of pursuers who refuse to accept rejection. So let's talk about the first one, the rejected stalker. That's someone who pursues an ex-partner after a relationship dissolution, and they are entirely at odds with the other person's decision to leave, vacillating between a desire to reconcile and a desire for revenge. And then we have, on the other hand, the incompetent suitor. That's the other one. Now, the incompetent suitor maps perfectly to a pursuer who lacks social awareness. Incompetent pursuer. They have poor social skills, and they fail to read the target's explicit signs of disinterest or rejection. They do not necessarily harbor malice, but they actively ignore the other person's free will, autonomy, because they fixate on their own desire to find a partner. And now let's go to the third one, which is the erotomanic, or erotopathic. Sorry, these are not words that I came up with. The erotomanic or the erotopathic stalker. Okay, that is a delusional pursuer who holds a fixed, immutable belief that the target secretly loves them, interpreting an explicit no as just a temporary hurdle or a code for try harder. I tell you, this stuff gets scary. Okay, and then let's go to another academic. This is just one. Mary P. Brewster. She's great. Now, the concept that she works with is the continuum of courtship and control. Did you get that? Mary P. Brewster. The continuum of courtship and control. Now, Dr. Mary Brewster, she's a criminologist who has extensively studied the motivations behind relational pursuit. She conceptualizes stalking not as a completely separate island of behavior, but as the extreme pathological end of a courtship continuum. Now, Brewster's research emphasizes that normal romantic pursuit is characterized by an ongoing negotiation of boundaries, where both parties maintain their autonomy. But when a pursuer shifts into a stalker, then the motivation fundamentally pivots away from mutuality and completely towards power and control. The stalker refuses to recognize the target as an independent agent with the right to choose, instead treating the target's free will as an obstacle to be dismantled. Okay, so that's what academics talk about. Now, let's connect all this, connect it all, and let's think about this from the perspective of the good ETs. The dividing line between a healthy romantic pursuit and stalking is a total disregard for the other person's self-determination. So when a pursuer treats an explicit exercise of free will not as an answer, but as a challenge to be bypassed, the threshold into harassment has been crossed. So now, the question is how to avoid this if you are among the good ETs trying to pursue and save humanity. Well, you may not like this part, but part of the answer is to acknowledge that there is no perfect deterministic answer. And it is possible to do everything correct in pursuing humanity and still lose, just like it's possible to do everything correct in terms of pursuing a person for a relationship and to still not succeed. It's possible that it will happen. And it is possible that no matter what you do, humanity will choose to align themselves with the bad ETs, for whatever reason. Similarly, with romantic hoped for relationship, it's possible that the target person will align themselves with somebody else, no matter what you do. And you just have to live with it. It's over. So, for example, well, for example, though, that's what the good ETs have to face. But what if, switching it from a relational thing between two people and talking about the good ETs and bad ETs, it's very possible that no matter what you do, humanity will choose to align themselves with the bad ETs for whatever reason, no matter how you characterize the bad ETs. So in a relationship, you may characterize some person's choice to have a relationship with somebody else by saying, that person's a real deadbeat, that's a dump, that's a bad thing. It's still okay. That's what they choose. And your perspective of a deadbeat may not be their perspective of a deadbeat. Maybe there's other great things for that person that you're not seeing. You have to accept that there is this free will decision, means that they have their own ways of thinking about the problem that really do not match what you're thinking about. Okay, so going back to the bad ET situation, it's really possible that no matter what you do, humanity will choose to align themselves with the bad ETs, again, for whatever reason. For example, let me give you to explain this. What if the bad ETs promise that they can end all of the war and economic tragedies facing humanity during these very troublesome times, with war going on in the Middle East and in Europe and all the other problems, the economic problems? What if the bad ETs said, we can solve all that in the blink of an eye? We can get everybody to stop fighting, wars will go away, and we can even fix the economic problems. Would humanity accept an alliance with the bad ETs if they could resolve all of these war and economic problems right away? Do you think the bad ETs haven't thought about that? And do you think they don't have the capability of resolving all these things? They can mentally manipulate the leadership of all these countries and have the wars stop tomorrow. You think the bad ETs don't think about doing that? But they want something. If that happens, they want something. So, would humanity then think that the bad ETs saved them from themselves? And then would humanity say, let's align ourselves with the bad ETs? So you see, it is possible for humanity to make a free will decision to align themselves with the bad ETs. And you can be absolutely certain that the bad ETs will make that exact offer to human leadership in the near future. You got to be crazy if you don't think that the bad ETs won't do that. They will absolutely make that offer. So this is not an academic question only. It is real. But, there's always a but. On the other hand, what should the good ETs do? Well, here we have a very simple answer. There is only one answer. The good ETs have to supply humanity with the full and uncensored information of what has been going on with this planet and with humanity for thousands of years. They have to simply supply the information, make sure it gets through. We have to simply tell everyone the truth. That's it. We have to develop reputations for always telling the truth. And we have to give humanity ways to verify the information. So remember when we showed you how to make UFO video photography, how to make UFO video recordings of cloaked spaceships flying over your whole house in the middle of the day using infrared as well as 120 frames per second, and how to edit the footage to see the UFOs? That was part of it. We didn't want to just tell you that the UFOs are real. We wanted to show you what they look like and to tell you how to take pictures of them, or motion pictures of them, movies of them, videos of them, so you can see them moving around. Always with Farsight, it's always verification is part of the process. And when we show you our remote viewing results, it's always showing you the results and then showing you the results on video, while the remote viewers are totally blind to everything, so you don't have to take somebody's word for it. You get to see it right in front of your eyes. Verification. verification, verification. The one person you want to avoid more than all is the person who says, trust me. I'll show you the right stuff. Don't trust that person. Always ask for verification. So, the basic idea is we have to be involved with telling the truth and showing you how to verify that what we're doing is the truth. So this is the reason that Farsight exists. This is the reason that the good ETs helped Farsight to grow and to be what it is. And this is the Farsight mission. And this is exactly why we have FarsightPrime.com, our video streaming service. And you've got to be totally crazy if you think we wouldn't be totally canceled. We're already shadow banned completely on YouTube and Google. The search engines, YouTube and Google, were shadow banned. If you do a search for remote viewing, we should be at the top. We were at the top a few years back, always going back a couple decades. But then suddenly they flipped the switch and you can't even find us. So, and we're the only remote viewing group that you can't find. Now you can find us if you search for Farsight, but if you search for remote viewing, and we are the absolute largest venue for remote viewing results anywhere on the planet. And we have tons of studies, and nowhere else do you get studies. If you want to say, you know, why are we being shadow banned? There are so many people that say they're doing remote viewing. Find some of their projects. Let's see their sessions. Let's see the video recordings of them describing things while they're blind. Show me the projects. Where are they? They don't exist. We're the only place that has full public remote viewing projects in huge numbers that you can see, that you can find anywhere. So it makes absolutely no sense for us to be shadow banned, so you'll not be able to find it when you search for remote viewing, because we're the only place that you can find it. So that tells you that we're the real thing. If we were not the real thing, you'd be able to find us immediately. Okay, so believe it or not, YouTube and Google are actually telling you directly that we are the real thing by doing the shadow banning. So, anyway, so that's why Farsight exists. We are the venue that they have chose to help build, where we gather our own information. We don't rely on he said, she said stuff. And we do our own projects using the methodology that we show you how we work it, and even teach you how to do it yourself. We have video recordings of lessons on FarsightPrime.com where people learn from just the video recordings, the instructional recordings. Some people take courses also. But the issue is we show you how it's done. We show you how video recordings of ET spaceship can be made on demand in the middle of the day using certain camera equipment. We show you everything. And then we wait until disclosure happens. And when disclosure happens, we're expecting that at some point, somebody's going to point everybody in our direction. That's why FarsightPrime.com is so important. It's the only place for all of the answers for all of this stuff. Now let's go back to the newssphere that we just published, and the newsspheres that we published last week. The last week's newsspheres were on the 9/11 thing. You really don't think that we wouldn't be canceled completely off of YouTube if we put all that stuff on YouTube? Huh? The point is, we have to include those newsspheres. We always have one newssphere of the two we do a week. One goes on YouTube on Inside the Spotlight, and the other goes on FarsightPrime.com. So the 9/11 stuff was like super major. The one that we thought would not be canceled so much was the Pentagon attacks. The World Trade Center attacks, we thought that would be canceled, and so we put that only on FarsightPrime.com. And once you see it, you go watch the actual projects. That's how you do it. And now this week we did the two projects that we did on the JFK assassination. Those are the two biggest political processes that have been squelched by the powers that be more than anything else in recent times, over the last 100 years or so. The World Trade Center and the JFK assassination. So the one you just saw is a newsphere that tells you what's inside the project on the JFK assassination part 2, the operators. And the other newsphere, which is on FarsightPrime.com, tells you what's in the other part, JFK assassination part 1, which is the shooters. You got to see those. You got to see not only the newspheres, which are quick 5-6 minute videos, you have to see the original projects also to see the details. It is bone chilling to see these great remote viewers, Dick Algar and Daz Smith, describe these things. And they didn't talk to each other during the process. They didn't know the target. They didn't know the nature of the project. They just were told there's a target, remote view it, period, end of story. And they, statistically, they came up with the same stuff. And statistically, that's impossible. The probability of them coming up with exactly the same stuff is 0. If they didn't know anything about it. So they had to have gotten it from remote viewing that worked. And you get to actually see the video where it shows you that. It's great. Anyway, so we have the newspheres of last week, which is the 9/11 stuff, and the newspheres of this week, which is the JFK assassination stuff. And that gives you an idea that we don't hold anything back. And that's why FarsightPrime.com exists. It's the only place we exist where we don't hold anything back and can survive. But it's for you. Okay? That's it. Well, that's what I wanted to talk with you about today. So this is the whole, and I hope you didn't mind me framing it in the context of normal pursuing versus stalking and the differences between it. But the academic stuff where they talk about the differences really shows the really relational difference, because the good ETs have to walk a very fine line. They want to pursue, but they don't want to freak out humanity and make humanity think, gosh, freaking them out and think they're stalking and then dangerous and wanting them to just go away, because that's a free will decision. If you make a decision, I just want them to go away, that's a free will decision. And they are free will beings, the good ETs. They will respect that free will decision. And you can say, okay, it's crazy, but listen, it's not illegal to be crazy. It's not illegal to be crazy. What is not allowed is when the craziness impacts others. So if the craziness causes that person to put other people in danger, then it's an issue. But if the person is just crazy, hey, that's life. That's just life. And so if they make a free will decision, and if you think that's nuts, your job is not to convince them that they're nuts and they should like you instead. No, your position is simple. As a free will being, you just simply have to accept it and walk away. Walk away. If something happens like that with me and someone doesn't want to have any contact with me anymore, I delete their information from the phone completely. No backups. I delete all information I have on my computer, and empty the trash can. It's gone, and I just walk away, because they've made a free will decision. It's over. It's done, and you just have to walk on. So that's what the good ETs want to do. They want to have you in a situation where you have enough information to make a free will decision, and they don't want to rattle you so much that you can't make that free will decision because you get jittery. They want you to have the information and to look at it, and then to make a free will decision in as calm a mental state as possible. And then they wait. That's not what the bad ETs do. That is not what the bad ETs do. The only reason the bad ETs are here and messing with you in the first place is they don't accept anything dealing with free will stuff. They force people, even when they abduct them, they actually force them to say, do you agree to this? But they put it in such a weird way that people are sort of saying, yeah, it's okay, but it's not okay, but it's sort of okay, and that's good enough. Even a messy free will decision, as far as the good ETs are concerned, has to be accepted. So the bad ETs take advantage of this, big time. Anyway, so that's the situation we are going into this summer. How is the disclosure thing going to be received? Is it going to be received in a scary way, making people afraid of the ETs, saying go away, in which case the good ETs will have to go away. The bad ETs won't respect anything like that, but the good ETs, that's what they do. They'll do that. They'll go away. They'll go away, and they have no. You can't say if they see that the bad ETs are bad, then they're stupid and they should be invading and taking care of things anyway. No. It's not illegal to be crazy. It's not illegal to have a decision, to have a free will decision. It's not our place to say those people are just thinking wrong and we're going to decide for them and they have to align themselves with us. That's like a stalker saying, that person who I love is just crazy, they're not thinking right, so I'm going to keep pursuing them because they don't think right until they finally make a decision to like me. That's stupid. That's crazy. Do you understand why that's crazy? Well, that's the exact type of thinking that the good ETs are looking at. They do not want humanity to think like that. So one of the things that's the bottom line of the good ETs is once humanity makes a decision, it's over. Now, right now, we are in a situation where it's ambiguous. So the good ETs can still pursue. Remember in 2024, in November and December, they had those hundreds of thousands, actually, of ships flying all over the world. They were pursuing, they were telling you, notice us, notice us. It's like sending somebody a text message or an email saying, I'm still here. That's what they were doing. They were pursuing you, but they didn't force it. They were pursuing you and then they stopped. Okay? Ultimately, they're just giving you enough information to be able to make a decision. So until you make the decision, however, it's still ambiguous and it's still okay for them to pursue you. But as soon as you say, I don't want you to talk with me anymore, I don't want you to contact me anymore, I don't want you to email me, text me, or anything anymore, as soon as they make that decision, that's like saying, I don't want you ETs to mess with me anymore. It's over at that point. It's over. There's nothing that can be done. A free will being, and I am a free will being, the good ETs are free will beings, they stop at that point completely. And they walk away. Forever. Well, as far as, maybe 5,000 years from now, they may sort of jump in again and say, you still feel that way? But, it's, you have to give it, many thousands of years to sort of sort things out. Besides, by that time, whatever happens to the population of the planet Earth will be history at that point. It'll just happen. So let's go into the final point of why the good ETs are pursuing humanity right now. Remember, it's not crazy. It's not illegal to be crazy. It's not illegal to have a desire to be aligning yourself with the bad ETs. So why are the good ETs actually pursuing this anyway? Why don't they just walk away and say, okay, you're with the bad ETs, let it be? Because they have found out that in the future, the bad ETs expand, and they need personnel to expand into the rest of the galaxy. And we're talking about a holocaust of unprecedented scope, where they invade the rest of the galaxy. And you can't just invade with ships and blast people. You've got to move populations into these conquered areas. You've got to put soldiers. You've got to put prostitutes as service those soldiers. You got to put tradespeople. You got to put everybody you can possibly think of. Everybody from trash collectors to beauty parlor people to everything you can possibly think. All that has to go in. And you're talking billions of people are necessary to do that. Now they have, in terms of ISBs, immortal spiritual beings, they have 8 billion approximately ISBs in physical bodies on planet Earth. But, in the wings, people who are waiting and not yet in physical bodies or cycling between, there's, billions others. I don't know how many, let's say 30 or 40 billion. That's a lot of ISBs. That's a lot of people that can go out and fill in an expansive invasion into the rest of the galaxy. And that's why Earth is important to the bad ETs. They need a population. A lot of Bisbees. They need a lot of people. They can put those people into bodies all over the place, but they need the Bisbees to begin with, and they have them here. That's why a prison planet is a prison. They're not looking at the nature, the wildlife, the minerals, but they wanted the Isbies. They want you. And so the good ETs have noted that in the future, that expansion into the galaxy actually happens. And then they said, where are these people coming from? And they traced it back, and it was Earth. And then they said, oh my gosh, well, what is the most volatile time that exists for us to disrupt this so that we could wake humanity up, and then they could make a free will decision not to do this? And they found out that this was the time. So they started some thousands of years ago trying to modify the way people thought with different philosophers and religious people and so on, slowly changing the way people thought. And they had a gun to the head of the good ETs to allow it to happen. I'm sorry, they had a gun to the head of the bad ETs to allow it to happen. But now they're at the point where they're having to make a decision of what to do. So now they're at the point of waiting for the actual free will decision to be made. So if you have a person that you're communicating with and you're pursuing them, if they've never told you to go away, you don't really know what to do. And so you might end up just texting them every once in a while or whatever. But once they tell you, stop, go away, it's over. That's where we are right now with the good ETs. They've been sort of showing themselves, showing new ideas, inserting new ideas into the history of the planet, philosophies, religions, things like that. And here we are, finally setting the stage up perfectly for a decision. And this is when the time comes for the people to make a decision. And when they make a decision, that's when the good ETs are holding their breath and saying, did we do this right? But just remember, even if they did everything right, it's still possible for humanity to choose to align themselves with the bad ETs. You can't control the decision. All you can do is set things up to the best possible way you can to let humanity know everything they need to know to make the decision. And that's why Farsight exists. That's why FarsightPrime.com exists. We are where you're showing you everything you need to know. And then the decision has to be made. And at that point, that's where you know the difference between someone who's pursuing and someone who's stalking. Because with a pursuer, if the person makes a decision and tells the pursuer to go away, they will go away. And the good ETs are the pursuers. They are not stalkers. They will go away. This is the summer when that process is reaching a peak. So, that's where we are right now. And that's what I wanted to talk with you about today. The complexities of disclosure. Okay. So I want to thank everybody for being here and coming by. And I want to see, let me see, how long have we talked? We talked over an hour, so that was a lot. And we covered a lot, and looks like we had a good turnout, actually. Okay. So I will have the final edited recording of this up later tonight or tomorrow morning, and on our home page on the YouTube channel, as well as on FarsightPrime.com. But the live stream is going to remain up as the live stream under the live section on YouTube. All right, everybody, I want to thank you so much, and I will see you. And again, I'm sorry for being a day late. We were supposed to do this on Sunday. Can I give you a hint of what actually happened? To get those new spheres out with the animation stuff and everything, so much stuff had to be done, and we were doing so much other stuff because we were doing animation stuff and other things for the new Mysteries project that's coming out. so much stuff happens. I was going to bed at 5:30, 5 o'clock in the morning every single night for a week, and finally yesterday I was sitting in front of the computer getting ready to do the live stream, and I briefly closed my eyes, and when I opened them up again, it was 8. I slept through the whole thing. I was just so exhausted. I couldn't make this presentation yesterday, so I just said, okay, we'll do it on Monday. So here we are on Monday instead of Sunday. But next week it'll be Sunday and normal time, and I'll see you next week on Spotlight. Okay? See you there. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.